and we're going. So I'm with Ben tonight, and believe it or not, he's halfway. Well, I guess it's halfway across the world. It's on the other side of the world from Australia.
Totally different hemisphere.
Yes. How are you tonight? Today, I guess it's morning there, isn't it?
Look, it is. You might be 2 beers in, and I'm 2 coffees in.
Yeah, it's 6:30 in the evening here.
I felt like as part of our chat, I should sort of meet you in the middle, and instead of having 2 coffees this morning, I should have had like 2 espresso martinis, because they're kind of like the mix between the two.
Seems reasonable.
That is the breakfast drink in lockdown. And incidentally, you can see I'm looking a little bit wild and woolly here. We've just recently come out of one of the world's longest lockdowns. And do you know what a long lockdown means?
No haircuts.
No haircuts.
Right.
Nobody, like, when you read about it in history books and you go, oh, they were locked down. And you go, yeah, that's pretty rough. And then you look at the nuts and bolts of that and you go, no haircuts.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, wow. So in Australia, there's whole YouTube channels and a lot of social sharing of people getting their partners to cut their hair, or their housemates to have a crack at cutting their hair. And there are some really, really wild and crazy Australian haircuts courtesy of lockdown.
What let you guys out of the lockdown? I'm sorry, I got a little bug flying around here. It's bugging me.
No, that's all right. The big thing that got us out of lockdown was having a really high vaccine uptake. Mm-hmm. So we have, we're almost at 85, or the state that I'm in Victoria, we're nudging the 90% vaccination rate, which is really wonderful. And what we saw anecdotally here in Australia is hospitalizations and deaths dramatically drop when we had so many vaccinated individuals. I mean, on top of that, we still have masks for indoor settings and for grocery shopping and essential things that everyone has to do. Mm-hmm. And we have a much better culture now of hand sanitization than what we did previously, to the point where in Australia we have had hardly any flu deaths and hardly any seasonal flu at all, to the point where they think that seasonal flu is not a thing in Australia, courtesy of everyone.
Shit. There you go. We had some pause there for a sec. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, so you said there was no flu deaths due to, and then everything froze on me for a second.
So there was no flu deaths, and there was like hardly any cases reported of the seasonal flu, because everyone was wearing masks and washing their hands and keeping separated.
Right.
It's not fun. Everyone hates lockdown, and everyone hates COVID, and nobody likes any of it. But it does go to show how indiscriminate diseases are in going, I don't care whether you're happy with the situation or not, but anytime you get close to a person, I'm going to try and jump over and infect them.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, we're stuck on a never. It seems like a never-ending loop of, like, you must do this so you can do that, and then we do whatever they want, and then they're like, oh no, now you have to do this next thing. It just feels like this is never going to end.
Look, I totally agree, and this is the problem that we knew to start with, is the alpha strain of COVID. We knew was slippery, which is genuinely a technical term for a virus that mutates very quickly. And since then, we're up to Delta, and now we're seeing Delta Plus.
Which I just saw another one too.
Lambda's really scary.
Yes, that was the one.
Oh, wow. And look, the thing is, the faster we all work out what to do with this, and it's also, the first time in my lifetime that science and research has been moving so quickly that we don't, normally it bumbles along at a relatively slow pace where they go, no, butter's bad for you. No, here's new research. Butter's good for you. No,
Right.
butter's bad. Butter's good. Whereas here we've actually got millions and millions of people with this disease that enables the research to move very, very quickly. And we're also seeing it in every country around the world. So we've got a lot of information happening very quickly. And I think authorities, in a clumsy way, are trying to go, oh, this is the best advice now. Okay, we have to roll that out ASAP and to try and save as many people as we can and, keep our economies going in a healthiest way that we can using, big picture thinking. And then they go, oh, the virus has changed and we've got different modeling or more data from this, so we've got to change and do this and do that. And it's just, it's the first time, particularly as white people, that we've had anyone tell us what to do ever. And we're not doing too well with it, to be honest.
Yeah, and the problem with a lot of it is it's so conflicting from one day to the next that I feel like a lot of people instantly discredit everything. And
yeah, it's
one day,
very easy to do that.
And to be honest with you, unless you are sick, most people go on about their normal life. I mean, it's kind of like the seatbelt thing in cars. Like, I know a lot of people that won't wear a seatbelt until they're in a bad wreck. And then they're like, geez, I wish I would have had that on, sort of deal. So it's one of those things where everybody has to kind of square with their own experiences. It's just interesting times.
Look, I totally agree. And we're getting stories from intensive care nurses with people dying from COVID going, can I have the vaccine now? And they're going, no, it's too late. It's a 6-week turnaround and you have to not have COVID in order to get the vaccine. So, and part of that is why it's important for us to trust scientific consensus. So when we talk about scientific consensus, it's different to a consensus down at the pub or at the bar where everyone goes, yeah, I reckon the same thing. So scientific consensus is a little bit different in the sense that it is a consensus of individual research papers that have been verified and peer-reviewed that say the same or similar. So it's not just everyone going, I reckon this. It's actual data and research from independent teams replicating that same concept to go, yeah, we're pretty sure that this is a thing.
Right. And also you have the other problem with all this is there's an inherent distrust of government and especially anything that's propelled by any sort of big company. So instantly people go back to, do you remember all those ads when it was cool for pregnant women to smoke? Like the doctors were like, this is good for you. Have a cigarette. Relax.
Yeah.
Everybody has that in their craw too, that it's just a mess.
Look, and I think that now we're actually being asked as humans to step up. So once upon a time, it was either government bad, big companies bad, big pharma bad. Now we don't actually have that luxury to call things just good or bad. We actually have to understand the nuances of what we're saying. Now, instead of saying everything from the government is bad, now I'm insanely wary of politicians and the government. I do not trust them as far as I can throw them. However, I now have to go through each and everything they say to go, this is rubbish, this is rubbish, this is rubbish. Okay, this is a really good public health thing that's going to keep me alive. This is rubbish, this is rubbish, this is rubbish. As opposed to going, everything's bad.
Right.
Because I want to keep me safe. I want to keep my family safe. I want to keep people that I love in my community safe.
Of course,
and in order for me to do that, I have to be really present in the political situation that we have in Australia. And part of that is doing my research, reading everything that I can, and understanding the context of what I'm reading to hold government to account to say, that's rubbish, that's rubbish, that's good, that's bad, that's okay, that needs a bit more work. Yeah.
Is Australia, like in the United States here, everything is so politically divided. You could pretty much pick what somebody believes about any topic, and I mean just about any topic, any situation that's going on in the country or in the world right now, and you can just, it's almost universal. You can pick which side of the aisle they're on and how they're going to feel or react about things. It's so incredible that when you actually look at some sort of science or data or a video of something, everybody watches the video, and depending on what political persuasion you have, they see a completely different thing. It's utterly astounding. I don't know if it's like that down where you guys are or not.
Look, and I think the problem is we look at politics like football teams.
Yes.
Where you go, oh, my team sucks, but they're my team, and everyone else is bad. And, I don't understand that, but as a football team, that's not going to change anyone's life. So that's fine. You can feel however you want about a football team. But when it comes to politics, that genuinely can make a huge difference and a huge impact in a lot of people's lives by blindly following anything. So I like being present in the process, and we have a percentage of people here that believe that the political parties they voted for in the 60s are the same as the ones they're voting for now. So we have a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'm a staunch XYZ, or Liberal or Labor as we have here. And I feel like their blind trust is not being respected or rewarded by the parties.
It seems like it's taken advantage of more than often.
Very much. Very much. And I think the interesting thing that we're seeing, particularly in Australian politics, and as an outsider, I see a little bit of this in American politics as well, but I don't have as much information on that, is that I see that a lot of the parties aren't the parties that they were. However, what I do see is an overwhelming left and right divide, as in left wing and right wing within both or all parties. And it is the right faction that is trying to get control of both parties, and as is the left faction to try and balance it out. And then the centrists are trying to do the same thing. And you go, so our real political leaning isn't whatever name you put on the party. It's whether we are inherently hard right, hard left, or centrist.
Right.
And I find that really interesting.
Right. And what's really strange about it is it seems like there's a very small percentage of hard extremists in every party that runs everything. And everybody else is just kind of in the middle. So like you said, I've been, on one side or the other of a political party for decades, or a person has. But there's a minority of people in that party that are really pushing the agenda and running it. Most people are more similar on both sides.
Yeah, I agree.
And then they fight about it. It's bananas.
They fight about nuances.
Yeah.
But I find the scariest thing is how do you explain to someone in public office who is there to serve and look after the community that is far right that you shouldn't hate people?
Right.
That you shouldn't be cruel to people, and the whole point of community is to work together and balance the economy and balance how to provide a better standard of living to everyone. Right. And we are constantly judged by the weakest link in the chain.
Oh, all the time.
I see a lot of right wing things that I go, okay, well, let's say hypothetically we had an extreme left person who was running it, or we had a centrist person who was running it, and then out of all of the options there, the only one where marginalised groups and the have-nots tend to suffer most is with hard right. Everyone else, it's kind of like they're kind of okay. More people tend to be oppressed under a far right, which is exactly why, Hitler didn't work out, and Pol Pot and a whole heap of those other guys. Their value set is very different.
What's very weird in the United States right now is it's almost like you said, the left and quote unquote left and right parties have sort of switched sides a little bit, where the left side in the United States has become the lockdown, oppressive, you can't do this, can't say that crowd, and the right's a little more freewheeling in the fact that they're, if you want to call it left and right, but they're a little more freewheeling and do what you want, a little more freedom as far as the lockdowns and things of that nature. And everything else is just a toss-up. It just depends on what side of the bed you wake up on that day. And it's neither of them makes a whole lot of sense anymore. It's kind of crazy.
And I think it's really, and America's a really wonderful example as well, being, for many reasons, being the largest English-speaking capitalist market in the world. So you've got, again, just like we were saying with lockdowns, managing best health advice and managing public health advice, and going, how do we mishmash the two together to get maximum compliance to keep people safe? Now, when we look at it from a political standpoint, with left, centre, and right, which are all relative terms that I dislike using, but they're an easy way to explain different groups of people, I think what we're seeing is a mix of how can I communicate a message that'll get the maximum number of people on board so that I can do the stuff that I really want to do, which may be unpopular. And this is the problem with politics all over. It's going, if I know that people want A, so I'm going to give them A and then sneak through B and C.
Right.
Because then I've got the power from giving them A and they're not looking at B and C.
Right. Right.
And we see that in the news cycle as well, and how masterfully politicians will go, there's this really hot topic or this scandal that's happened, so I'm going to drop something even bigger. Right. News attention's going to go to that, and then this other thing's going to be on the back burner.
I'm just going to go away.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's strange times we're living in. It's wild. And then what's really weird is I don't think any other time in history have you been able to fact check things in real time, or at least try to. Used to be. I remember being a kid. Being a kid and an older person told you something, and you're like, I kind of think that's bullshit. But unless you had a stack of encyclopedias that were actually up to date, there was no way to instantly find out the information. Where now, if somebody tells you something, you kind of just pick up your phone and go, I don't think that's true.
Click.
Yeah.
Nah, you're full of shit.
Yeah, 100%. So it's wild.
But I also, it's funny because if we look at just that piece of that little nugget of information that you've shared there, you go, I almost think that when I was younger, when an old person told you something and you couldn't real-time fact check, I would like to think that we had a stronger social fabric in believing and trusting people, which would lead them to be more likely to share accurate information and remember it, because we weren't able to access and fact check. And now we can, and we've got zero ethics and zero morals, zero everything, and we've got the most access to everything that the human species has put on paper in our hand.
Well, and also it seems like you can find
it work.
Right. You can find probably a website that backs up, or a chat group somewhere that backs up any notion you have in life too. Also,
totally.
So that's, if you do believe in something that's completely crazy, odds are there's another group of, a few thousands, if not tens of thousands people that will reinforce that and believe it along with you. So,
totally. Just like that Facebook group that popped up, big toe, left foot, big toe fetish group or whatever. There's a group for everything, and that doesn't mean that we should be part of those groups. And it also doesn't. And I think this is the other thing that our human brains tend to struggle with. Just because you find other people that like the same thing, that doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean it's accurate. And I think one of the things that our society has lagged behind with is the skills which are vital these days to work out, how do I verify information?
I
How
don't
do I
think,
work out what's real and what isn't?
sure. I don't think a lot of times people have enough time in the day between job and kids and life. So you catch a
I
little
agree.
piece of information that reinforces what you already believe, usually, and that's good enough. You're not citing the source and going looking for, the footnotes of the story to see where it came from.
Look, and I totally agree. And that's part of the manipulation of information in this age.
Hmm.
And we see a lot of grossly inaccurate headlines that are allowed to go through simply because the story explains it. And you go, hang on, I know what you're
Right.
doing.
Especially
And
in the past year, the amount of headlines that I've read, and you're like, what? And then you read the story, and you're like, it's not even close. It's not even in the ballpark of what the. But it got me to read the story, so it's that
totally,
that clickbait type of thing.
yeah, sensationalist headlines
Mm-hmm.
and definitely get people to click. And again, this is late stage capitalism all over. Not that I'm saying that it's, great or wrong or anything. It's just, it is what it is. This is it's about getting clicks, not about being accurate. It's about
Mm-hmm.
being first, not about being accurate. And I think that as a society, we need to push for that accuracy. We need to push for that awareness and understanding of how do we process information. Oh, and even to the fact of, as you were saying, being really busy and going, okay, well, I'm super busy. I've read a headline. It agrees with what I say, but I reckon it's a bit blunt, could be a bit sus. I'm not going to spread that until I check it
Right.
or I have an awareness of it. Or don't blindly believe things before, so for example, if I believe something or I hear something new and I go, yeah, I'm hardcore this.
Mm-hmm.
In order for me to have that standpoint, I don't just magically wake up with it. I've actually done some research on it and I've actually read, core documents and primary information
Right.
in order for me to have a solid opinion on something. And what will change my solid opinion is data and information that is equally accurate and better than what I read. So
And
my opinion on things changes
well, that's what I was
based
just going to
on
say.
based on information.
Anybody that's a hardcore one way or the other their entire life, I'm always a little bit suspect of their thought process and character. If you believe the same things you believed when you were like 20 that you do when you're 30, 40, 50, and 60, or don't see the shades in gray of everything,
Yep.
you're not really looking at much. You're just kind of blindly believing on. So I sometimes, anytime I hear somebody say something that I think is completely, especially in a conversation, I think we have to resist this urge just to argue with them for the sake of being right, and just go, oh, okay, well, I'll consider that and kind of move on. Like it doesn't. This is what's
Yeah.
weird because what you could have a set of perspectives on an issue, and I could have a set of perspectives that are both equally right, but wrong for each other. You know what I mean? So at some
Yeah.
point, it seems like we're looking for the universal right all the time, and I don't think there is one
Well,
on most
I
things.
think that right and wrong in a lot of day-to-day contexts is relative,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we can say, and it's also okay for two opposing things to be right as well.
Right.
So, for example, lockdown example here in Australia, people saying we need lockdown because of corona. Okay, tick, accurate. Lockdown is causing a massive spike in mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Also a tick. Does that mean we get rid of lockdown? No, because then people die because of corona. But then if we keep lockdown, we have failing mental health and a health system that can't cope with either. So both of us are right. Both of us are focusing on different nuances.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if we had the communication skills to step back and look at that in a bigger picture and go, okay, well, I understand that we got to keep people alive. That's number one, because it doesn't matter if you have mental health issues if you're dead. And we also need to try and improve the quality of life for people. while they're in lockdown and staying safe. So how about we work together rather than fight each other and find a way that we can keep people safe, because at the core of both of those things is I want people to be safe.
Obviously.
So being able to have those communication skills, and I think a lot of times in society we're taught to not talk about difficult things as opposed to how to talk about difficult things. And if we have an awareness of those skills and a healthy use and practice of those skills, I think we would find that a lot of core values of people tend to be very similar.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everybody wants their family to be healthy. They want to live a nice life. I mean, it boils down to a few things. I mean, it really is universal.
Yeah. And how we do those things based on our own interpretation of what we think is important. But then there's also that arrogance there, which we all have, where we go, no, what I'm focusing on is the most important because that affects me directly. So it's arrogance mixed with a healthy dose of narcissism. And I think what we've lost is the ability to think as a community. A lot of people are out for, things that are good for the community, but they want for themselves, as opposed to going, I'm happy to make some sacrifices so that other people in my community can be safe and so that we can have a better life together as a community, even though it means that I may have to be inconvenienced for a little bit of time or whatever.
So what's wild about this conversation is this isn't where I thought this would go at all. As far as
same.
So you said you had just got done hosting a show last night, and what was that like in the post-lockdown COVID world, and what was that show you had mentioned?
Look, it was the Community Club's Victoria Annual Awards Night, which they haven't done since 2019. So this was a really big, really special awards. Now, normally there's like 700 or 800 people in a function centre, and we're handing out awards, and I'm hosting and telling jokes and stuff. And it was really different because I had a lot of conversations with the organisation's executive board and saying that, look, we can't do a face-to-face event because in Melbourne, we haven't been allowed to do large events courtesy of COVID for quite a long time. They made the call relatively early that we would do a virtual event, and because there was no way that we were able to get 700 people. We might be able to get 50 or 100 in a room, but then that's it's not the same. So we decided to produce a online awards ceremony, which we did in, a COVID-safe fashion, which was really, really hard and very challenging for everyone, not only for communities that couldn't get together, but also for us to get, award presenters in and find locations that were within either 5, 10 or 25 kilometres from each other so that we could meet in a middle point, and then finding a venue where we could film all this in these middle points was really challenging. But, we did it, and it was on a really, really super tight deadline. And look, it went off really, really well.
What were the awards for?
Community Clubs Victoria.
Okay.
So basically we have, I don't know if you have them in the States or not. So
I'm not sure.
we have RSL clubs, which are for, the RSL is Returned Servicemen's League. So
okay.
That's the equivalent of your we have veterans here as well, but your veteran community. So we have an organisation called the RSL, Returned Servicemen's League, which are basically a bunch of clubs, and there's a bar, and there's community services there, and they have outreach programs and health services and a whole heap of other really wonderful things that are not only good for stable and healthy communities, but also direct services that are very, very helpful for returned servicemen or veterans that come back from war zones or are ex-military. Sure. So it's a really helpful organisation. So some of them are members. We also have lawn bowls clubs, and we have greyhound racing clubs and horse racing clubs and stuff like that. So basically, any community club in Victoria is eligible to join Community Clubs Victoria, and we see some really great, and the awards highlighted some really great outreach programs where they're involving different parts of the community to come in and experience whatever that club particularly does, and they're creating new friendships and all sorts of wonderful things like that. So it was such a joy to do the awards and to host and put them together so that we could recognize and inspire so many more clubs and organizations to get out in their community and to share some of those really, really great ideas about how they can connect.
Sure. So did you struggle at all with it being a virtual event? I've noticed a lot of the stuff that we watched over the past year or two that was virtual, that used to be, especially the talk shows. The talk shows have just been brutal. That usually have a studio audience and real guests. I mean, it's just, it peeled away this layer of what was making that show work. And it wasn't the guy hosting it, on those ones. Agree. So it was a completely different thing. And then a lot of the award shows and event shows we watched, it just was, it looked like everybody was really struggling to figure out how to do it, because it's like all new, different, not what they're used to.
Oh, look, it was it's certainly a different beast. It's very, very hard. And we use a whole heap of different tools and tricks to try and manage that, because my capacity to watch or be involved in something via a screen is very different to if I'm in real life.
Right.
A 3 to 5 hour award ceremony in real life while I'm drinking and eating and talking to people and sitting on different tables and having fun and doing dancing and doing all sorts of stuff is very different to doing 5 hours online.
Right.
So part of the trick that we had is going, okay, well, let's do this. Let's be polite and witty and nice about it and crunch it all down into a short amount of time. So we're just handing awards out, getting it done.
Right.
And because people's resilience is much lower, particularly now after 2 years of doing Zoom meetings. So look, video is really hard, and doing engaging live events really hard. Like I normally, like pre-COVID, would do. I think my maximum has been 3 different gigs in a day.
Wow.
And I feel pretty tired after that. But after doing 3 Zoom events or online events, I'm toast. Absolutely toast. Because to transmit that level of energy through a screen or through a little camera lens is astronomical for it to come out on the other side.
Right.
I also think that the other problem that is unique to Australia is our internet is terrible here.
Really?
Absolutely terrible. And we spent $124 billion on this network. We've only got 25 million people here, 26 million now. But we spent, 60 or $80 billion to start with, and then we've topped it up and fixed, bits and pieces. But the estimate was that our failing national broadband network has cost, enough that we probably could have bought a small third world country.
Right. That's enough money for each of you to launch your own satellite. Like what? What?
Yeah, totally.
Where'd that go? Like what? I mean, obviously it's working.
Kind of. So after that massive amount of expenditure, we now proudly have the 69th, no joke intended, the 69th fastest internet in the world.
Nice. Well, at least you're in the top 100.
Yeah, Kenya is above us.
Really?
Yeah.
So what is it? Is it broadband based, like through cable, or is it wireless, or what's your?
That's a really good question. I'm pleased you asked that. It is a cable network, and there are parts of the network that are fiber optic, which is good. The original plan for this was all fiber optic. Amazing idea. Future proof. Handles plenty of different speeds. Light. Really, really handy. What we ended up with was parts of it being fiber optic and parts of it being 20-year-old copper.
Perfect.
So we have huge bottlenecks where it goes from fiber optic to copper, and then from copper to fiber optic. Because not only do we have the speed difference between the two mediums, we've actually got to convert from electrical impulses to light, and then from light to electric. And as we know, anytime we convert anything, there's a loss and there's a time delay.
Right.
So we have, if you are on total fiber, it's pretty good. If you are on, if there's copper anywhere between you and whatever you're trying to do, game over. We even have TV ads saying, hey, here's a hot tip to get better internet. Don't use the internet between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. That's our peak time. And I'm going, sorry, what?
Right. Doesn't even make sense.
No, none of it makes sense. You'll get better internet if you don't use it.
It's amazing around here. So we live out in the country, and so we sort of get the, I don't want to say the scraps of everything that happens in the cities, but it'll be 10 years behind whatever. Whenever somebody else, like right now 5G is the big cell phone thing. We'll probably have 5G around here. It'll be 2 or 3 more years at least. So we're kind of that lag behind, but it was the same thing with the internet. Our internet was dreadful for the longest time because it was the same patchwork of there's cable lines, there's fiber optic. They tried to use phone lines for the longest time. Dreadful. That was awful too. And now I think everything mostly runs off of like coax cable, copper type stuff around here, and it's a good network of it, and it seems to be better, but now everything's changing to wireless around here as well.
So it's slow. Copper's slow, but it's relatively stable for the first 20 years. However, I love the idea, and this gets back to government as well, future-proofing stuff for the next generation, the generation after that, and going, how can we lay the groundwork for infrastructure that is going to look after us and our people and our communities for the future? And fiber optic has been that for the last 20 years. We've known that fiber optic is like amazing and, you know, relatively future-proof and definitely the way that things are going. Yet, you know, we still go, oh, I'll do a bit of this and I'll do a bit of that, and a bit of that, to the point where now, in Australia as well, we're seeing that the physical infrastructure is not being put in and is not future-proof. So telcos are doing what they can do and what they can control themselves, and that's rolling out wireless, because wireless is totally in the control of telcos.
Right.
You know, they don't need any government investment or future-proofing or planning for infrastructure or anything like that. They just go out and build a tower.
Right.
And they put whatever transmitter they want on the top of that. And then they do all of that. They still need to connect it to the network at the base of the tower. But having said that, there is a lot more components that are under their control for a greater number of customers. So eventually, and particularly in Australia, so we're seeing that this billion-trillion-dollar mess of an internet system that is kind of hobbling along could actually be really good with a couple of comparatively cheap improvements, but nobody wants to spend the money on that, despite the telecommunications industry pushing for it. So everybody wants good internet, but there's a couple of roadblocks in there. However, I'm looking, you can't see it, but I'm actually looking up at my 2 4G LTE connections. So I'm actually running my entire business and studio on wireless because it's faster and more stable than the NBN.
Wow. It's crazy.
Or our cable broadband network.
Right.
So, yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. So if I've got a, you know, the base plan, which is what I would assume most people are on for the internet, I'm lucky to get 2 megabits up.
Oh, wow.
And because it's shaped to manage the network. So it's 2 megabits up, and I might get anywhere between 15 and 30 down.
Wow. That's like bare minimum.
Totally. You might as well hear the dial-up squelch.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, a base like house around here gets 100 down and 35 up, 40 up. That's just a regular house, connection at home.
It's totally different here. And, and we had a big thing where what they advertise minimum speeds are and what the actual minimum speeds are were very, very different. So at the moment I'm getting, what is it? 30 to 50 up and like 200 down. So, and I'm okay with that.
Isn't it wild that they came up with a way to charge for the data that comes through the phone line or the line? It's almost like
weird.
Telephone people sat around for like decades going, how can we charge them per word? Like, it's not enough. We're charging them like for the monthly connection. We want to charge them for every word they use.
It's like the people that were sacked from the newspaper classified section went, how about we move into internet now?
Mm-hmm. Let's make some money.
It's so weird because the greatest cost is in infrastructure. It's not in the flow or volume of data. No. And I think what we will see is and we have it's happened with our mobiles here, is it's just unlimited plans.
Mm-hmm.
Where you just pay $50 a month and you get XYZ.
Well,
or $100 a month for 200 or whatever it is. And I don't mind that. I think the idea of unlimited is a really good idea.
Right. All of our unlimited plans, though, it's completely unlimited until you hit 20 megs for the month, and then it slows down. So it's not truly unlimited around here. So if you have a little girl like I do who just downloads movie after movie after movie after movie, that goes pretty quick. So the unlimited plans are they still get you on the back end. They don't charge you more, but it slows down.
So we don't have that yet. We have that when you have we don't call them unlimited plans because they're not really unlimited shaped. So for example, my phone plan, I've got 80 gig. And look, the only reason I'm telling you numbers is because we're from different countries, and I find that really interesting to see how that compares. So let's say I've got 80 gig on my phone. If I hit my 80 gig, not only do I get an email saying, do you want to buy more? After my 80 gig, it just goes slower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's my 80 gig plan.
Right.
Whereas, my internet, as a 4G LTE box thing, is unlimited, and it's not shaped. It just keeps going.
Right. Actually, I take that back. I must have said megabyte. I meant gig. We hit 20 gig.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So that'd be a bad day. It's only megabyte.
But then to be fair, back when the internet started, it was megabyte.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's gigabyte, and next it'll be terabyte.
I went and bought a drive, a remote drive, storage drive. I couldn't. It was a fascinating amount of terabytes. I can't remember. It was like 50 terabytes or some ridiculous number, and I'm like, what? That's not even. That wasn't even conceivable like 10, 15 years ago.
So show me your drive. How big's your drive?
It's
and what size is it?
Let me see if I can see the. I can't see how big it. Yeah, I can't see it. There's not enough light right there, but I want to say it was 50 terabyte.
50 terabyte, right? So this is what I bought, and it's.
How big's that?
That's a solid state hard drive, and that's a terabyte.
It's crazy. Just crazy.
How insane is that? It's just wild. Crazy.
That's wild.
I can like fit that in a thumb drive, and it's like, not that I would, because the USB port would actually slow it down.
Well, and that we don't have the good shit yet. There's government agencies and stuff that have like 1,000 times better than ours. We're
I know how
lagging
the
behind.
Weasleys felt. We're getting hand-me-downs.
That's right. It's not good. We should have way better. That's unacceptable. That little terabyte there. We need
I
smaller.
know. I know. I think, yeah, just insert it in the back of my head. That'll be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
That's the next. I reckon that's the next thing, though. It's going to be wearable or integrated tech.
Absolutely, because people don't go anywhere with their phone anymore. It's bananas, especially. I mean, I'm guilty of it, same as everybody. But when you just watch people in public, like they live on their phones, and there's not going to be long before somehow that's integrated, so you're not holding it like a phone anymore, and it's distracting. It's just going to be part of your day because it sort of already is. It's very close as we're getting into speech and different things like that you can just talk to your phone and make it do pretty much anything. So.
You know, it's funny. I've got a app. I don't even know where it is now. I've got an Apple. Well, I'm always losing shit. I've got an Apple Watch, and there's a couple of videos on the internet of me doing a gig, and then holding the mic in the same hand the Apple Watch is in, and me talking away and telling a joke, and then Siri piping up at the end going, "I'm not that kind of assistant."
That's funny.
You know, or just chiming in with her 2 cents every now and then. It's actually really, really interesting how much and how often we're listened to by AI and tech.
Mm-hmm.
And for the purpose of, you know, providing more targeted ads or, you know, better quality of life or whatnot, I think that's, you know, that's kind of useful. But then it's not about what's happening now. It's about what's happening into the future. Mm-hmm. And, you know, no, it wasn't Elon Musk, although he's a big supporter of being wary of artificial intelligence. It was an article that was put out by the BBC about how easy it is for good artificial intelligence at the moment to hack a human brain.
Really?
So can you imagine if we created artificial intelligence and it went, you meat puppets are easy to manipulate.
Right.
Why don't we just hack your brain?
Right.
You know? And when I say hack a brain, it's not like the Matrix where they've got tentacles going into your brain or not. Mm-hmm. It's behavioral hacking, which is what advertising has been doing for decades, but in a more targeted way.
Mm-hmm. I would love to, exactly what you're already talking about, I'd love to see the results in the back end of like Facebook or Instagram or whatever that will pare you down to a specific column of interest. I guarantee, well, they already say there's a couple different documentaries that say they can basically take what you like, dislike, photos you share, what you look like, and basically predict. And, you know, that's the thing that everybody's always talking about all the time.
We're all talking about Facebook and going, oh my God, how unethical and terrible is Facebook? And WeChat in China has just gone, hold my beer.
Right. Yeah, that's wild. That's the one that has a social score and all that with it. Or is it?
They've got facial recognition in their software. So Tencent is the company that owns WeChat, and they have strong ties to the Chinese government. So, and information and privacy laws are very different there. So they can actually. I actually did some work with WeChat, and one of the things that they were saying is they were trying desperately to increase the amount of WeChat users in Australia and across the world because of the information feedback that it gets, because China is its parent company, or China is where it's based, so the information laws are very different. And what they were saying is, if I want to, as a normal everyday advertiser, if I want to target 100% of the people in the building next to me, I can do that, and it will know when they are home and target them when they are home, and it knows where they live and it knows what they're doing, so it will be able to schedule advertising so I can have maximum impact on the building next to me and everyone who lives in it.
Right. And that's the most friendly, useful, least harmful way of using that technology.
Totally.
It's frightening what else you could go.
But if you extrapolate that about other
Yes.
things that you can do with that,
Yes.
wow.
It's crazy, ain't it? So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any way around it at this point. I mean, we're in it. See what happens.
I am quite sure that the human race, through its own ignorance, arrogance, and intelligence, will end up finding a really expensive, creative way to kill itself.
Oh, we try that all the time. It seems like it's a regular goal of ours. So
yeah, we laugh at the Darwin Awards, but really, that's how that's everyone's
right.
end goal. Yeah.
Right.
But then I go, maybe AI will actually end up like, and this is hypothesizing. I've got zero data on this. Maybe it will end up like the Matrix, where AI's just gone, so you've taught me what a virus is and, you know, what parasitic organisms are, and I actually kind of think that you guys are actually that. So maybe the rest of the world would be better without you. And then its goal is to politely get rid of us.
Right. And it really depends on what data it's working off of. So our data set has some mixed in humanity, where if you really looked at all the data from a day-to-day perspective, a lot of things don't really make sense from a pure fact, good, no good test, you know.
Totally.
So it could
wonder how different our lives would be if we lived like that and we went, okay, well, why don't we just don't accept accepted wisdoms? What if we actually purposefully lived our lives and went, okay, well, I want to, you know, be the best human that I can be. How can I do that? You know, how would AI have me live to be a meaningful contributor on this planet?
It really depends. See, where it gets weird is what's a contributor. So you design a spaceship and that's awesome, or you invent a cell phone and that's awesome, or are you a good dad? Like there's so you know, I mean, what is the thing? And maybe it's not useful to be I don't know, a good friend. You could spend that time more productively working on your next invention or whatever it is. So it seems
Very
like
true.
there's such a broad thing it is to be a human that I don't know that it.
What does that mean? And, you know, we look at philosophy. And I had a friend that had a PhD in philosophy, unemployed, of course, but very, very interesting to talk to. And I went, okay, so you've read a whole chunk of Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy from, all different time periods and some of the modern stuff. And, so what's it all boiled down to? And I've just gone, just do whatever the fuck you want.
Right. Be happy. I say that all the time. Like, the only moral purpose of life is just to be happy. What makes you happy without hurting other people? Be happy. Period. Just.
Yeah. So, I just think that it's an interesting point. And there's a Facebook group that I follow called the Philosopher's Shirt, and they make really quirky T-shirts with memes about philosophy on it. And one of them was this big book that says how to win at business and die anyway.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we all get caught up with is material wealth. Robert Kiyosaki talks about that in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he defines wealth as the length of time that you can survive without working, as opposed to how many monies do I have.
Right.
So
very
if you're in debt and you have a lot of debt and you work to service that debt, then that's not wealth.
Right.
But if you can not go to work forever, I'd fairly say that's pretty wealthy.
Yeah, that's a better way to live there.
Yeah.
Doing what you want instead of what you have to sort of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I go, how much better would our lives be if we actually did what we wanted rather than what we felt we had to?
Well, what's strange is I say this all the time, and I've had my own business. My parents have had their own business forever. So I've always been in the self-employed realm of the world, So the amount of time in my life that I actually went somewhere and somebody else signed my paycheck is relatively small. But that's very hard to live, to get up every day and do that every day when you're not forced to. And when you watch a lot of people who are, it sounds like you're a self-employed fella. It's hard to keep that ambition up every day when nobody's really going to bitch at you if you get there at 9 or 9:15 or even 10, or if you show up at all, except for your bills at the end of the month, I guess. But
yeah,
it's
yeah. Our interview started at at 10:30, and being a self-employed hobo, I got up like 10 minutes before. Yeah.
Right.
Because I can, and because I worked late last night. So,
right.
My time is my own, and I manage my time.
Right.
And my output, and this is the thing that I love about being self-employed and why I'm the most unemployable human in the world. I manage my own world and my own life to get the output that I need.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily get to that point the same way as everyone else because I'm neurodiverse, but I manage my world to get the output that I need. Whereas when I find a lot of times when you're employed, it's about, I don't care about the output. I mean, I need output, but you're going to do it how I tell you.
Mm-hmm. And also I've noticed one of the things that growing up, my dad was raised a farmer. He was a farmer from birth. And instilled in him is you get up super early, you work all day long, but you just work. And basically that's the philosophy in life. And that's how I was raised.
Yeah, wow.
So the COVID thing was very good for me in some point where it made everything just time out. Let's take a look at everything. And one of the things that I realized was, you know what am I doing? Like if I lose my business through this COVID thing, I've worked 7 days a week, 15, 16, 17, 18 hours a day for decades. For what? For what? Why am I doing this?
And I totally agree. And I have that thought as well. And I think the idea is about time freedom and being able to manage your own time. That's important. But then you also have to have that really cold, hard awareness of going, would I be better off if I worked at McDonald's? Or would I be better, compared to what's going on? There was a thing when I read some research about multi-level marketing and stuff like that. And they're going, okay, for the time, effort, and energy that you put into your multi-level business and the friends you lose because you're trying hard to sell them, the hours you put in, you would actually make more working at a fast food place.
Yes.
100%. and achieve more. So it's about working out what is my goal in my business and where do I want to go, and is it the same, if not better, than what it would be if I just got a job somewhere.
Right.
Right. And a lot of us in business or small business are aspiring to something, and it's that hope or that growth that keeps us going and enables us to do that. But work for the sake of work, might as well be in a prison camp then.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other thing is this idea of growth is the other one that's kind of starting to drive me nuts. The fact that we have to grow, like every year we need to add 10%, 15, 20, whatever the mystical number is that we're going to project, because we can clearly predict everything that's going to happen in the next year on the world scale. And for what? If you're making enough right now, like, be happy. It's good.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is my neurodiverse brain coming in. So when I was working in corporate, they'd go, what are your next year's projections? And I went, inaccurate. That's what they are.
Right.
And
it's a guess.
But we need them. How can we work that out? And I went, I don't have a crystal ball. How can you foresee? I mean, sure, signed contracts. Yeah, yep, totally agree. If you've got a 3-year contract and you're in year 2, pretty fair to say that the third year is going to be the same as 1 and 2. Maybe with a couple of learnings from those first years. So that'll give you a rough idea. But in most other industries, like let's say you're in retail, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just making up some BS numbers and putting it on a sheet, and you go, yes, that's a very good projection.
Right. Like, maybe you could take an average. Yeah. Like there's no way to.
You know what? In 2019 and before, you could probably take a bit of an average. But how many projections saw COVID?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like.
You know what I mean? How many projections saw the GFC? How many projections saw, any number of events like that. They're just inaccurate. And if you're making future purchasing decisions based on inaccurate projections, this is why a lot of businesses end up in trouble, spending money they don't have on future sales that they haven't got.
Right. And then I feel like that growth thing always jumps in there too. So you're projecting
Totally.
We're going to have 15% growth. So that means we have 15% more profit.
But then how do CEOs with KPIs deliver that growth if that growth isn't organically there? So good management, sure, you can aim for that growth and that's cool. And you can expand and have a strategy to get additional sales or additional growth. That's fine. But if you come short of that, what do?
Cut costs somewhere.
You sack people and you cut costs so you can meet your KPIs and get your money. And I think part of the problem is we've seen the balance go from privately owned or family owned businesses that don't need 20% growth. If you're making $3 million a year or $10 million a year, you don't need an extra 10% each year. You just need to keep making your $10 million. That's still great. There's still no problem with that.
Right.
However, if I'm a shareholder driven company and I've got, CEO in there and I've got a board of directors and I'm accountable to profit driven shareholders, they want that growth every year so that they can get a return on their investment. Right. And I think the problem is when that balance moved to shareholder driven companies, we lost the industry. Each industry has its own sort of baseline about what quality is for a service. And if you have a company that is privately owned that wants to keep going indefinitely, as a lot of family-owned businesses do, they want to keep their quality up and they don't need that 20% growth every year to satisfy shareholders. They'll maintain a higher quality. And then in order for the shareholder-driven company to compete, they have to match that quality or better it. And still get the 20% profit, So it's that whole ecosystem of we need both to make that a feasible thing. And we have the same thing here in Australia. There's small and medium businesses that are privately owned. A lot of our large businesses are either publicly traded or have a massive shareholders. And it's all about, I want 20% growth every year, no matter what.
Right.
And then you go in and you look at some of the businesses and you go, okay, so you've got this giant footprint store and you've got 3 staff on. Because the go-to, if you've got a soulless MBA, is just sack staff.
Right.
And then we have other larger issues when everyone does that. Like we see that in radio at the moment. Podcasting's got it's having a massive jump. But terrestrial radio broadcast, we're actually losing a lot of talent from the industry. So previously we need to cut costs. We're just going to syndicate some shows and get rid of some people, and we'll just hire them back if we need to. Well, if everyone does that, all of those great people go into other jobs, and the talent pool's gone.
Right. I also think
who are you going to hire?
Yeah, and I also think the other thing with terrestrial radio is that's not how people talk. Like I listen to our morning local little station around here. And I'm just like, oh my God, have a normal conversation for once in your life instead of this. I don't know what this zany, goofy zap, zap, zap. It's not funny. It's just dumb. It's just,
American radio. I find that a bit challenging sometimes. But then, to be fair, I was on, and still am. I was on radio more than I actually listened to it. And we're really fortunate here in Australia. There are still some shows that are just really great conversations, great chats, and some cool music in between. And that's nice. And I like that. But they're mainly pre-produced shows from external companies that they just sort of bring in and play,
Sure.
And I think a lot of people that are into that sort of stuff have moved to the world of podcasting. And we see Spotify, for example, which is quite big here in Australia, doing some wonderful things with podcasting and purchasing podcasts for people to listen. So they can listen to music and their podcasts, and very soon they'll also be able to listen to audiobooks as well on Spotify, which is going to really disrupt Amazon's Audible.
Yes.
So you're right. I think media is going through that really tough stage where it's changing what it's about and who it is. And, radio did the same thing when TV came along.
Right.
It changed, and there was this whole disruptive period, and then it kind of settled a bit. Then we got the internet, whatever that thing is.
And
then it disrupted, and then we got video on demand, and then we've got streaming services, and now nobody buys physical CDs at all. It's all just in the ether. What
is funny is now in the age of Netflix and Amazon and all those others, so you can watch a new series season drops. You can just watch all of them. You just sit down and watch all 10 of them. And there is some weird magical thing about waiting till next week to see the next episode that I forgot about. And there's, I think, 2 shows doing it right now. And the show's over and you're like, shit, I want to watch the next episode, but you have to wait. You have to learn some patience.
And that is so important, because so much of our world is driven by that immediate need for dopamine in our brains. I want to watch it. I will watch it. That deliberate delayed gratification, I think, is actually in a way very healthy for us. I mean, it's in a relatively meaningless way, like television, but it's still very important, because a want is a want. And I think that's one of the evolutionary things where we've kind of hacked ourselves to death, is wanting everything now at all costs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Like the concept of having a lay-by, in a store where you...
you're using words that we don't have here.
No, that could be an Australian thing.
It must be.
Could be an Australian thing. It's where you walk into a store and you go, oh, I really want that. I really want that thing. So I'm going to ask you to put that away, and I'm going to pay it off. And I'm going to come in every week and give you, a couple of bucks off that. And then at the end of the time, I've paid it off and I can have it then. What do you guys call that?
We call it a layaway. So close.
Layaway.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So close. Well, hey, man, this was a great conversation. I don't want to hold you up from your lunch or wherever you're headed next here.
Probably a third cup of coffee, really.
Yeah, it's about time. But I really appreciate you doing this, and we'll have to do it again sometime. This was a good time.
This is a really wonderful conversation, and you're such a wonderful conversationalist. It's really great to chat openly about our 2 countries and the differences and some of the great things and not so great things about the human condition. This has been very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a good time. So we'll do this again sometime.
Definitely. Can't wait.
All right, bud. See you later.